Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. I acknowledge our economy is facing difficulties and the people of Ghana are enduring hardships. I feel the pain personally, professionally, and in my soul. I see and feel the terrible impact of rising prices of goods and services on lives and livelihoods. I feel the stress of running a business. Let me say to the Ghanaian people that what I believe with courage every finance minister around the world may wish to say to his people: I am truly sorry. That is Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. But he insists he has not mismanaged the economy, and in fact, the large part of what is happening is caused by inherited circumstances and external factors. Should Ken Ofori-Atta go? Do you still hold that position? How about the censure motion process in the House? Did they get the wrong process for the wrong man? There is one man that many Ghanaians, many of you have been asking that he should go together with Ken Ofori-Atta. That is Charles Edouboahing, Deputy Minister of Finance of State. There have been calls and cries. Even MPP MPs have decided against what we're all familiar with, to take a stand people see as very extraordinary, demanding the president relieves him. Martin Pebu and his group, the Fix the Country and others, came together in a demonstration. It has not resulted in what happened on Monday. Anas Arimeyal Anas of the Tiger IPI, he struck in the morning, and before midday, Charles Edouboahing was gone. Is his principle, the Anas principle, achieving results, yet under attack? And why? I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. Welcome back. And here is Samson's take. Like to blow our own horns just a bit. I title it Newsfile Remains the Best because of you. Thank you. This morning I start by inviting not only the anti-LGBT plus crusaders, but all to read the Godfrey Yeboah-Dame near unimpeachable advice on that controversial bill. The sponsors and those who align with their views, including the unconstitutional aspects, must read it to continue the pursuit with less emotions. The sometimes veiled incitement to criminal conduct and human rights abuse. You can't push the bill without all of that. The AG is lawyer for all of us. He supports the law. That means there is executive, or more appropriately, state backing for the bill. But read how he renders his opinion, his deliberate choice of words and expressions. He is not blinded by the fact that aspects of the bill are plain unconstitutional and untenable and should not find expression in Ghanaian law. Dear Crusaders, you reject the AG's advice at the risk of having the end product crushed in court for not passing muster. It is a good read. It is only 18 pages, but deals with each clause, including the wrong subjective title, as if we are in a theocracy. The unimplementable provisions and illegal felony sanctions for what ought to be punished as misdemeanors. Please take note of all of that Attorney General advises against. I read that piece of scholarly work soon as it was sent to me earlier this week. I started to make notes, copious notes, to dedicate my take to the details in there. But I paused and told myself I had to stop this attitude of not celebrating, sometimes not even a whisper about what others celebrate about Newsfile. Personally, I don't exactly like to participate in awards that require one to canvass for votes. In fact, I'm even hesitant about those requiring one to file an entry to qualify. I have a preference for those that are decided by a faculty of accomplished and persons of integrity. I cherish more of those awards which are the products of peer review, independent assessment, and recognition of one's work. I believe awards do not only communicate endorsement, but motivation to give off our utmost. You must make them. They should not make you. When I was nominated together with those 4 others, the distinguished MPs, incorruptible police officer Confidence Fia, Gaji, and Manasseh Azure winner for the GII's integrity personality, I quietly campaigned for Manasseh because I believed he more than deserved it for all the risk and sacrifices that he makes for God and country. I'm on record as having rejected some of these awards because I didn't believe in them. But it felt good to be recognized with the GJA's Democracy and Peace Building and the ultimate PAV Answer GJA Journalist of the Year 2019 Awards. At this point, I congratulate all winners at the 2021 GJA Awards. The awards have resumed, especially TV3's Portia Gabo for picking the ultimate prize. She has been unassuming, calm, but effective at her work. Now, your most authoritative news analysis show, Newsfile, was recognized, endorsed. And here is how it looked like.
Now let's get straight to the winner for this category. Best Radio TV Program English goes to Newsfile, JoyNews, and Joy FM.
Absolutely.
Very well deserved. Over the years, Newsfile has consistently been the most authoritative news platform for Ghanaians and those in the diaspora. Now, the ultimate requirement of guests to subject their submissions to logic, to reason, and facts continue to make Newsfile the go-to source for many Ghanaians. It provides the opportunity for educating Ghanaians on political, legal, economic, and educational, as well as social issues. The GJA is proud to award you Best TV Program in English 2021, Newsfile. Finally, I see your face.
A Newsfile remains the longest running such news analysis platform, of course, around this place. And we are thankful to all of you who make Newsfile tick, for our guests who continue to come here and who spend their time to research and come to Newsfile to share with the rest of the world. I'd like to say thank you, especially to Ken Ansah, to Elvis Kwashi, Elvis Kwashi, Evans Mensah, MFA Apal, Emmanuel Ante, Matilda Womega, Kingsley Kwesi Victor Brachi, Dennis Ofer, Aaron Richard Eshen, Jojo Enti, Samuel Imbura, the online engineering and IT team and social media team as well, the director David Odro Babu, camera Isaac Eshen, Joe Saki, Ernest Annan, Razak Larry, David McCarthy, and those behind the sound, Andrews Ochreapia, Paul Minta, Bright Arthur, Lighting, Eben Kwashi, Samuel Siao, Francis, and those on set, Joseph Kwachi, Ben Yakon, and Frank. Of course, Alex Manfe, visual editor. These are the guys quietly behind, making sure that this news file is brought to you every week in the way you get it. Samuel Odame, thank you always. And I take a break. We'll be right back to deal with the Vex Martyrs. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And my guest this morning, Dr. Stephen Amwa, he's MP in Shaiso and member Finance Committee in Parliament. Adam Mutawakilu is former MP for Damango and former ranking member for Mines and Energy. Joining us via Zoom, Dr. John Osai Kwapong, political scientist, democracy and development fellow, CDD Ghana. Mary Awalana Ada is programs manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Suleimana Brahima is executive director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much, and good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Right,
Sorry.
right. Okay, so we are beginning the discussion from the latest ANAS expose, undercover work, which has led to the sacking of Charles Edu Boahen. He titled it Galamsey Economy. So let's first of all ask to know what your preliminary views are about the development, and then we'll begin to get into the details of the film and what it has caused. Let me begin with Dr. John Osai Kwapong. Good morning once again, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Samson. Good morning, everyone. It is always unfortunate when public officials find themselves in these situations. It goes to show that we still have a long way, or at least there's still work to be done in this area of trying to really fight these issues of the use of alleged use of public office for private gain, matters of corruption, all of that. So it's rather unfortunate that a career in public service has to end that way. But I think for me, the one thing though that I think the president did was the swift response in terms of the alleged issue. The response was very swift, which I've always said that there are two fronts on which a government always has to fight issues of alleged corruption. One, you have to fight it on the legal front, where you have to allow due process, where you have to allow the person to have a right to defend him or herself, etc., etc. But I think you also fight corruption on the political front. And on the political front, it is the perceptions that it creates in the minds of the general public that you also have to be in tune with. And I think sometimes we tend to err more on the legal side and have this sort of unflinching fidelity to due process and the law. But the political side is where the appointing authority gets to respond swiftly, because again, these things is not just a drag on the accused official, but also on the perception on the entire government and the appointing authority. So I appreciate the swiftness with which the president responded to these allegations.
Great. Now, let me just take all of us through a very swift recap of what happened, all happening between morning and before midday on Monday. First, Anas published in the Daily Guide newspaper, the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Kokubako's newspaper, that this is what had transpired. Charles Edubuahing had been filmed, and in the film, he was making a number of claims, including that Dr. Baumia, if he's giving some, $200,000 as appearance fee, then it will be possible to meet with him and to facilitate an investment for a certain sheikh. Then, in the course of the conversation, he himself had to be asked what was in it for him, how much he would take as his percentage. Then, after some hesitation, he suggested that he should be entitled to 50% cut on the $500 million, 50% cut on the $500 million, investment, quote unquote investment. He spoke about owning his own business and, wanting certain means and ways by which he could take his benefit. Now, immediately that was published, the vice president put up a tweet. And this is the tweet that the vice president put up. Let's quickly look at it. So the vice president said, "My attention has been drawn to a video by Anas Arameyaw Anas, as posted on his social media handle, showing the Minister of State for Finance, Mr. Charles Edubuahing, apparently using my name inter alia to peddle, influence, and collect money from supposed investors. I would like to state that if what the minister is alleged to have said is accurately captured in the video, then his position as a Minister of State is untenable. He should be dismissed summarily and investigated. I am not aware of any such meeting held by Minister Edubuahing or a supposed appearance fee. My most cherished asset in life is my integrity, and I will not allow anyone to use my name to engage in corrupt activities." Right after this, then we got a publication from the presidency. The presidency was categorical in dismissing Mr. Edubuahing. Want to share that with you as well. This came just a few minutes after this. Then the presidency issued the notice of dismissal, and it's dated the 14th of November 2022. President Akufo-Addo terminates appointment of Charles Edubuahing. The President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has terminated the appointment of the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Charles Edubuahing, with immediate effect. After being made aware of the allegations leveled against the minister in the expose, Galamsey Economy, the President spoke to Mr. Edubuahing, after which he took the decision to terminate his appointment and also to refer the matter to the Special Prosecutor for further investigations. The President thanked Mr. Edubuahing for his strong services to his government since his appointment in 2017 and wished him well in his future endeavors. It was signed by Eugene Ahin, Director of Communications at the Presidency. things were just running really rather fast. It didn't take long, and then we were alerted to this tweet by Charles Edubwahin. And it read, "It has come to my attention that a documentary to be aired by Tiger IPI and an article published in the Crusading Guide of Today seeks to accuse me of brokering deals for the Vice President of the Republic. This follows an attempt to entrap myself and other persons in 2018. We'll be talking about entrapment. Substantively, I have not been involved in this act of which I am being accused." Please note, it says substantively, I have not been involved in this act of which I am being accused. I do not, however, wish to be a distraction to the government and the Ministry of Finance at this crucial moment. Consequently, I have submitted my resignation to the President of the Republic. I will, however, look forward to a full investigation, which I hope will reveal that I have not committed this act. Take note of that. And then the very last important, activity following this, or communication or publication following this, was the OSP, Office of Special Prosecutor. And that release is headed Charles Edubwahin. It reads, by a letter dated 14 November 2022 and referenced OSP 305/1/22/1106, the Secretary to the President, upon the directions of the President, referred to the Office of the Special Prosecutor for further investigations, allegations of corruption leveled against Mr. Charles Edubwahin, former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, contained in an investigative expose published by Tiger IPI and the investigative journalist Anas Aremiyao Anas, entitled Galamsey Economy. The Office of the Special Prosecutor has promptly commenced investigations into the actions of Mr. Charles Edubwahin and any other implicated person contained in the investigative expose Galamsey Economy, and is signed by the Special Prosecutor, Kisie Jabing. Is dated 15th November 2022. So that's a day after the developments. Right. Okay. So earlier, did I say Edubwahin was demanding 50%? He demanded 20% of the shares, 20% cuts. I'm sure I said 20%. I said 50, eh? Okay, 20%. Thank you very much. Now, Mary, this is how things developed, rather swift, rather fast. What do you say from where you sit at the Ghana Integrity Initiative?
Thank you very much, Samson. Let me say congratulations once again to Newsfile for continuing to be the flagship weekend show on TV and also on radio. I think you deserve it more than, and we pray that it continues to be so. And good morning to my other panelists as well.
Thank you.
The app
okay.
You know, that is All right. So to continue, let me say that this was very swift, as Dr. Kwapon said. However, perhaps the issues that had happened, if you also listen to some of the genesis of these, it happened in 2018. And according to sources, most of the actors in this story knew about its occurrence. And I suspect perhaps they would have prepared for a good response. Listening to somebody on another channel previously, he indicated Anas had done something like that, which was intended to bring down government, and he decided to do a counter. And so most of these actors in this story, I believe, were prepared for it. However, we do not discount the fact that acting on same is the way to go. As Dr. Kwapon said, perceptions are fueled by our actions or lack of them. And in the fight against corruption, perceptions are fueled by the actions of the executive, and in this case, the president acted, so we cannot fault him for that. However, let me say that for me, the lesson in all of this is the fact that some people have come up for mention too many times. And so we believe that going forward, there must be some swift action. Again, not just referring to the special prosecutor to investigate the criminality around the issue of the person who is cited in this expose, but also the allegations surrounding the vice president. If you recollect, some time back, the analysis number 12 cited people in the Jubilee House for being complicit, where he mentions that the president is in his pocket, if I remember correctly. And then there were also allegations against some deputy chiefs of staff who are now ministers. So for me, I think that to fight corruption and also to show the way, particularly for the vice president, he should be interested in initiating some very thorough investigation at the presidency. This call should have followed what went to the special prosecutor, that there would be an internal investigation, very swift and expeditious, to determine culpability, if it is of the high-ranking authorities who are taking appearance fees, or if it is subordinate officers using the processes and the gaps in the system to enrich themselves. Remember, in the case of the judiciary, we know the then Chief Justice acted swiftly, ensuring that they put in place measures after their investigations. So at the helm of the executive, we believe that that is the way to go, to ensure that this does not recur, because recurrence of same then determines that the political economy of corruption in the presidency is fueled by certain factors. And if you want to see the president, you only need a certain amount to be able to get there, which I believe is not the case, as the vice president has come to deny. And his special assistant was on several radio stations, also presenting a counter, which I believe, for me, is not enough. They should do something. And then let me conclude with what I saw. I fortunately went to view the expose. For me, in my mind, and I believe in the view of a lot of the patrons in the IACC that evening, we were expecting to see something related to Galamsey. When the intro particularly spoke to something around the president and the fight, the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, then Amewu also came in. And so you were expecting to see more and more and more of what the Galamsey issues are, only to get what we got around somebody whose nickname also is Galamsey. The issues are relevant, but for me, I believe that some of us left the place asking, at the end of the first show, people were still seated because it's like we were expecting something more.
All right.
Which we did.
All right. So me, yeah, that's fine. These are supposed to be your preliminary comments. We will get to specific questions, including the quality of the film that people have asked issues about, whether or not the view is that this was a wrong, unethical approach to journalism, among other things. But of course, Suleimana, what will be your commentary on the manner in which things transpired from the morning of the publication to the evening of the film and the the OSP's letter. Very briefly, we will get into the questionings, and I know where you stand, for example, that this is not the kind of journalism that should be endorsed.
Well, Samson, thank you very much.
Yeah.
As you've said, and as other colleagues have said, the actions were quite swift and rightly so on the part of the president. I think this was something that revealed to us the character of a person in leadership and how the person is likely to conduct himself when presented with a certain opportunity or when offered certain opportunities, whether the person will begin to talk and act in ways that are intended for self-benefit or would act in ways that are to the benefit of the nation to which he serves. So for me, essentially, it was a test of character, and we would get into the issues about, the matters and all of that, as you have alluded to. Then the question of influence peddling. Samson, I think that it is something that is really prevalent. I believe that you sitting in the studio moderating this program, important and big, high-profile program that has continued to win awards, I'm sure you cannot imagine how many people will be related to you, maybe just a day's acquaintance, and they try to use your name and the relationship to say, oh, my friend is Samson, I can do this, I can do that. So you can imagine what people would want to do if they are closer to a minister or the vice president or the president. And so for me, as I said, it's a test of character. But the fact that people would continue to bring up the name of the vice president or even the president as a way of peddling, influence is for me not something that is surprising. Of course, the actions, as have been said, were quite swift. And, we all know the position of Mr. Dubois even before this incident, where a certain group of parliamentarians had said, look, together with the Minister for Information, they must go. So already his position was not too stable, even though the president had also tried to intervene. So certainly this then added to the pressure for him to go. And I was not surprised that the president took that quick action. Plus, whether or not the president was aware or had been shown the documentary in the first place is another matter, because in number 12, if you recall, it was made clear that before even the airing, the documentary had been shown to the president. And so for me, these will be my initial comments.
Right.
Yes, it was great. And
Okay.
the question of influence peddling using the vice president's name is for me not surprising.
Okay, thank you. Now, Honorable Mutakilu, what do you also have to say? This is not the first time Anas is going undercover and bringing us, work that has immediate, impact, and people suffer for indiscretion, some would say for who they really are, that they are corrupt. In 2015, when he did his expose on the judiciary, it took a 2-year, activity to cover all of that. In the end, we had 34 judges and magistrates that were caught on camera secretly asking for bribes. Some say some of them, they were tempted with the bribes. They didn't ask for it. Well, that's the jury is out there. Then the Chief Justice set up the inquiry. In the end, we had over 30 judges and over 100 judicial staff that were found to have breached their own, code of ethics, engaged in bribery, corruption, and they were sacked. How did you feel about this?
Yeah, I got quite worried that before I say anything, I would like to say good morning to our cherished viewers, and more especially the good people of Damongo constituency and my colleagues. It's been a while I've been on screen. You see, over the period, Anas has done a good job. He has put people on their toes, and in one of the presidential debates, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo said he will adopt the Anas principle. Unfortunately, since he became the president, his own presidency has been exposed. This is about the third time.
Your commentary now is about what has happened within the last few days since this was
Yeah,
released?
I just want to narrow it quickly.
You are going into areas that we will have to come to.
Yeah, that's why I'm giving a brief.
All right.
The number 12, then another one involving Charles Bisu, that's the Galamsey one, and then this one that has just come out. So that means at the office of the president, ANAS has captured issues of corruption related or alleged corruption 3 times, and that is unprecedented. However, the swift response to this one has called into question, is it because it involves the vice president? Because that swift response did not happen to the first 2. But this one was swift. Is it because it involves the vice president? That brings the question. 2, the public should not just assume that Honorable Adu Buahin, former Minister of State in charge of Finance at the office of the president, was just saying those things in a bid to extort money. I think that we should allow the special prosecutor to do an in-depth investigation before we start drawing conclusions because...
Have you seen the video, or at least that portion where Charles Adu Buahin had to bring in the name of the vice president? Have you seen that portion?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
And so I was saying this was preliminary commentary, but seeing it, would you like to say that he was sort of dictated to make those suggestions, or he did them on his own?
For me,
he was led into them, or he did them on his own?
You see, everybody has a limit within which people want to push you beyond. You have to be yourself. Anybody has a boundary. If you come to me to discuss with me and you start talking about bribe, I should know that is a red line as a person. I should know that is a red line. And that is what, as public officials, we must have. But if you making a promise to me or saying that, oh, I need this, how do you guide me? What do I give to A? And I'm willing to give information and to guide you, then it has been something I've done over time. To the point of going to the vice president family and what will happen, it's a cause for worry. And that is why I say the office of the special prosecutor...
Does it matter what he says about the integrity of the vice president before he begins to say, well, I think if you got him this as a token to be fine, an appreciation of sort?
You see, when I talk about your integrity, and the next moment I'm telling you that, okay, if we do this, then there is no integrity. The first thing you must realize, I've watched a lot of criminal activity. When I say, for me, nobody can bribe me, please, if you push the person ahead, you know the true value of that person. So by first of all making that statement does not mean that the integrity of the vice president is intact. If it was intact, he would have just gone ahead and said that this thing we cannot deal with in terms of bribery or getting anything for the vice president. He will not take it. He's a man of integrity. So when it comes to the vice president, please, let's forget of it. That's what I expected him to say. If he's sure that the integrity of the vice president...
We'll spend some time on that aspect. But yes, Steve, the development, and some said, but why the president? Many people have been calling for Ken and Adu Buahin to go. He doesn't do anything. He just waits to see a publication by ANAS. He doesn't even wait to see the video because he doesn't have the opportunity of seeing it. Previously, as we were made to understand, he had the opportunity of seeing something, but this time, that opportunity was not there. Some of us as journalists who also had the privilege that sometimes when ANAS is going to premiere something, he would give us some sneak peek into what was going on. We all didn't have the opportunity this time. And so even the title, Galamsey Economy, misled all of us until getting to the program itself that we began to know that that was just, sort of to try and mislead, take away attention, and stop people from what they normally do. When he begins to tell people about what he's going to do, then they start running to the court to get an injunction to stop him. So this was a clever way to keep them at bay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Samson. My regards to our cherished viewers this very morning and the entire Ghanaian community. And I would like to always emphasize the point that we in government, as well as all other meaning Ghanaians, appreciate the fact that there's hardship, globally and nationally, and that we are victims of what's happening today, and that we exercise high level of empathy. So Ghanaians should understand, nobody abuses the fact that there's hardship. I just want to tell them this. And Ghanaians should be calm, and I'm assuring them things will be all right, because steps are being taken. Coming to this issue, I'm a little bit confused, and I don't want to normally go into jurisdictions that I really don't have authority when it comes to understanding what is actually going on. But I would like to emphasize 3 key things and then 3 actors that I think I'll be in a position to comment on their actions and inactions, so that it will give a certain picture for Ghanaians to judge themselves. And we should also forget about the fact that in situations such as this, our brothers from the NDC would like to capitalize on that. And people would have done probably the same. They all want political capital. So they will try to say a whole lot of issues. I think the president has rather demonstrated a leader position and style that he has to be recommended. I'm not saying he's perfect. Let's be very honest. He took very swift decision, made very swift decision to let everybody understand that he really believes in open culture system when it comes to fighting corruption, which has been a canker, not only today, not even 4 years ago, right from Nkrumah time up to now. There are people who hold certain positions with respect to what Nkrumah that they thought constituted corruption. I'm not ready to go into this. Through former President Kufuor, late Professor Mills, former President Mahama, and even today Nana Addo. So corruption has been an issue. But then, if my brother says that expose on 3 issues has been unprecedented, I don't want to go in this area, because let us try to reduce politics. I would have then said that the unprecedented corruption issue we can talk of is where courts of competent jurisdiction has jailed NDC officials. All the 2 terms they had, 1 and 2. Perception will be there, but we are talking about court of competent jurisdiction. So I don't want to go in. I think the president has taken the right steps. And I'm also saying that there is a special prosecutor should accordingly be given the discretion, the exclusive right, his prerogative to really exercise his mandate in investigating the case, to ensure that Ghanaians get what they are expecting in a true, fair manner, that all stakeholders will not be treated in a way that they don't deserve. And I think the special prosecutor has what it takes. I like the way he is, and I think he can do that. So we should be patient. Adu Buahin, former Minister of State, Honorable Adu Buahin, to me, has not spoken. Not that I know. So it's just one-sided story now. We cannot draw any constructive inferences and say that he's wrong or right. Something under investigation will be very difficult for anyone to jump the gun. But of course, the president trying to let Ghanaians understand the fact that there's transparency.
You read the post that he put up.
I haven't read it. He defended it.
We read it to you.
You mean President or Vice?
No, Charles Dubois, where he says he's
because
waiting,
I left here, you remember.
He was waiting for the process and will cooperate with it, sort of, to see what goes on. He says he was entrapped, and that substantively he's not guilty of what he's being accused of. Okay, so that is his side. So now his side, sorry, when you were saying that, I had left, so I just came in. So his side against the side of those who actually conducted the investigation. So we need to wait for the conclusion that we'll get from the special prosecutor. Then we can, when it comes to the vice president,
I am surprised. Probably in the future, I can't talk about it. And I can't say the vice president is perfect. I cannot say that he's a human being. Sometimes, even the corruption issues, you may be jailed out of corruption, not because you're corrupt. You can be seen to be guilty of corruption out of sheer errors. Let's all be honest. And probably it could also be out of deliberate effort to be in corruption. I always say about this great man, is it Chachu? He was jailed, you remember? No, was it Chachu or the Ahoys? One of them, this cocoa issue of non-compliance. I had a view that we all realized that he embezzled the fund. But when it comes to audit work, compliance and other things can also put you into trouble. The point I'm trying to make is that those who are very close to the vice president, you can say anything about him, but not corruption. That one is a fact. Going forward, he's a human being, but the vice president is so firm and he was so emphatic, boldly. If he had even known anything about it, at least he couldn't have come that bold because he was putting himself in danger. Dubai would have come back and say, hey, he's a vice president, it's not only me. So right. I think if you look at all the stakeholders involved, the president, the vice president, their positions are giving us hope going forward into this issue.
Right.
And then Edubuahin has also given his side, contrary to what happened. What I understand that the woman, the great woman spoke about, and I'm sure my brother also said something which I agree. Let us also be very careful. Sometimes when you are being trapped, right from the onset of money issues and perceived corruption issue and bribery, you should be very careful what you say. It could happen to me, anybody at all, not only Adubuahin. So it's a sign. Let us know when you are appointed, something, about 90% of people who have been appointed, whether in DCMP, they will tell you, your first 3 months, if you don't take, you'll be in the same trouble. People will come to you with different offers, sometimes, demonstrating with good intentions. But if you don't manage your utterances well, if you don't manage your positions well, you'll be actually entangled or trapped, right. And you'll be in this situation. But for now,
let me go back.
Let's begin again. Take our time to see how things unfold. Let me go
again to Zoom and begin again with Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. So, Doc, what shall we make of the claim of the $200,000 appearance fee? If you have seen the video yourself, how that comes about? What should we make of, the claims that the supposed investor, needed to sort out family members of the vice president? And, that, will pave the way, give them control, and they'll be able to, do their investment. And then the 20% cut that Charles Edubuahin was heard, demanding. Was he demanding? So if you watch the video once again, he's asked how much he would take for himself. And he's reluctant. I mean, let's be plain about it. He's reluctant, he's hesitant. And he actually says that, well, I'll leave it to you. What do you say? And then the person tells him, well, you should say what you would take. And then eventually he talks about taking 20% of the $500 million quote-unquote investment. What do we make of all of that?
So if you, what the Honorable Stephen Amwa just said about when you get into office, your first couple of months, if you don't take time, you can actually get into trouble because of all the kinds of ideas or things that people sort of throw at you, propose to you, right? That statement is illustrative of some of these things that you've mentioned. In the fight against corruption, in the fight against the use of public office for private gain over the years, we hear these stories, right? Sometimes they are reported as allegations. Sometimes it's even your very own, quote unquote, friends who are close to the centers and the seats of power, who sort of share some of these, what I call whispers by the riverside with you, right? But you never have any real concrete evidence of, does it really happen? You know, you hear stories of, oh, if you want this to happen, go see person X, go see person Y. And so you watch the video and you start saying to yourself, is this someone who is, you know, just, you know, a phantom of their imagination? Or is this really the modus operandi that we've seen over the years, you know, in terms of state business transactions, and that's really the formula.
That doc is a concern of the investigator, as he tells us about, you know, courting investment into the country, and his concern is that we shouldn't have a situation where we discourage investors with demanding so much. Talk about 20%, you know, of $500, you know, $million. That's $100 million of, is it profit, quote unquote? You know, you must give somebody, you know, $200 million, $200,000 before they will give you audience, and that's his concern. That doesn't help the business climate for investors.
And I totally agree, because that's not the kind of signal that you want to send to potential investors, right? That the only way you can make an investment in the Ghanaian economy is how close you are to the centers of power and how much you're willing to dole out to someone or some persons in the process. That is why the video is very, very disturbing when you see some of the things that are being said. Personally, I was also very, very surprised that he would mention the vice president's name. I mean, if you look, I mean, there are certain names or certain places that every so often you would get heard, like I said, as part of the whispers by the riverside. But he's one person that I have never heard anybody mention anything in terms of influence peddling and corruption in relation to his name. So that is why, for me, it was very important, his very swift response, and also very important that the special prosecutor is also going to look into this and clarify all of these matters. But when all is said and done, I think it's disturbing, and it sends the wrong message, right? That really, is this how the state operates? Is this how the state, you know, deals with people who want to invest in the economy? Is this how, you know, people in public office take advantage of the office they hold? You would want to believe and hope that it's a one-off and not the general pattern of behavior. But these are matters that I have to be really looked into and settled.
So he was asked the question, how do we get the attention of the vice president or bring him into all of this to help? And, you know, as this discussion goes on, he says, you mean like appearance fee, you know, and stuff? I mean, he himself, the vice president, if you give him some $200,000 or something as a token, as thank you, appreciation, that's fine. He's not really like that. All he needs to worry about is his campaign money in 2020. When you watch that small short encounter at that point, are you giving to think that there's a possibility of the vice president being aware, as you know, Mutawakilu attempts to suggest here?
No, and I say no because he's one person that I've never heard any of these issues being associated with his name before. So that is why my initial reaction continues to be that comes as a shock and a surprise that a man that I've never heard any corruption-related stories about, that if you want access to him, you have to pay money because he has an eye towards an office and therefore needs to build his campaign war chest. It's very hard for me to believe that this is the vice president we are talking about, because like I said, for me, if my memory serves me right, I've never heard any such stories in relationship to him.
The 20% that he demands, and in addition to that, the kind of structure of how I'm hesitant in saying he demands from watching the video, because it takes a lot of asking of him, and he actually yields and says, well, you decide that. I leave that to you. That should be yours. And then this agent says, well, the sheikh wants you to be the one to name what it is that, you will take. And then subsequently, he says, 20%, and there's no bargain about it. And then he talks about his company that is doing, real estate, and how he intends to, if there could be some investment in affordable housing, and then he will get a certain cut out of all of that. What do you say about that encounter? Does it tell you anything about the character of the deputy minister himself?
So if what he's saying, here, if what he's saying is the way he was or has been operating in office, then that's really troubling for a public official, right? Again, we always hear some of these stories. Oh, they want a cut. Or maybe people in public office try to, gain from their public office, things like that. But if he was, as it is alleged, was showing the investor how he personally can profit for something that is being done on behalf of the nation, that's really troubling, because again, we want the kind of characters in public office who shun these things, who turn away such enticements or such opportunities to privately benefit from a state business transaction.
Okay, so now let me get to Mary again. And Mary, I just like us to, if you like, honor the text, what is going on in this particular video or film. And when, he talks about, 200,000 may be good for a token appreciation and whatever, and that he needs to get, members of the vice president family around to lead certain processes. He then proceeds, and there's that discussion about other things. And he says, quote, "Let me give you an example. I own myself a real estate company. So we are into real estate. So you just finished, we just finished an office block. I don't want to make money that I haven't worked for. I believe in working for money. If, let's say, we want to do affordable housing projects, which would cost 15 million, you can come in and share that with me. If you bring the whole $15 million for the project, you can earmark 20% of that 15 million as mine. And whatever returns I make on the 20%, I keep. Or you put the money to work and give me 10% finance fee, and then give me share of whatever returns on the project as well. We normally will make a return of maybe 25% returns, 30% dollar equity rate when we do projects like that. So it's up to you and how you are comfortable and how you want to work. So if you are analyzing that interaction, do you, like some others say, that you can't entirely blame him because almost everything he's saying is being suggested to him or he's being led into it, apart from the 20% that he himself speaks about, and then he begins also to talk about the structure of how to benefit?
Exactly. So, Samson, one of the things I have said and I continue to firmly believe in is the fact that somebody who is a public officer, and remember this is a public officer entrusted with power, and per the Constitution, Article 35, it speaks to the fact that the state shall put in place measures to eradicate corruption and the abuse of power. So this gentleman, from the chronicle you have just done, shows that it is something he's done before, and he knows the way to do it. Even though from the beginning it's something, it's reluctantly came to that disclosure. And for me, declaring that he had a real estate agency, coming again to say that when they do such deals, they are able to make 20 to 30%. It is very informative and revealing that, and coming from the past where a CEO of an entity was caught in a similar act of selling contracts. So you begin to wonder if our public officers intentionally register companies to do some of these things. And the other worrying aspect, which I believe we have perhaps not paid attention to, is the fact that this gentleman agreed to take a 20% of a certain amount of money that was supposed to be transferred in. Through what means, we do not know. Samson, you know that FATF and GIABA have been on our necks in the recent past on issues around money laundering. And this gentleman is a minister or deputy minister at the time when we were struggling to navigate the challenges of not getting banned on the international space for issues around money laundering. I say so again because we know that in the transactions around money laundering, one of the common indicators and denominators that is used is usually real estate.
That's correct.
So the perception in here in placing and layering is very, very, very worrying. And we must, and I was thinking that perhaps one of the things we could do, if the transaction was not complete, and so you, the lawyers, would say that he mentioned it, but he did not, the transaction was not complete, and so maybe it would not stand the test of time in court. But I believe
that's a different issue. We will look at it. There are clear laws of the country that punishes crime even if it is not complete.
Okay, great. So for me, I believe that one of the institutions that should also be proactive in this matter is the Economic and Organized Crime Office, to begin to investigate the background of this gentleman, to see what he has done in the past, to perhaps maybe adduce evidence to ensure that he is doing something about it. But I say conclusively that in any way, any person who has the interest of the state, and Sule mentioned this earlier, would not flagrantly peddle in such influence, bringing on board other people who may or may not be involved. We do not know for now because the vice president has denied so categorically that he is not aware the gentleman should be fired. So we do not know for now what the issues are. But then for the person to say so, he knows where he is coming from, and he may have said it based on the evidence he has, which we do not have. And so we cannot conclusively say that what he was saying was a lie. But to say that what he did showed that in all instances, he would be, he is one who can be entrapped, or when the opportunity arises, I say so, when the opportunity arises, he quickly grabs onto it, and this is what he has done. And he gives us snipers of what he would be able to do if he's given such opportunity in the future.
He said that, I have to introduce you to the vice president. The vice president is a very good man, and he used to be the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. So if I tell him you want to come and open a bank, he will prefer it that way. As soon as you can, I have to introduce you. Because, you know, even if I'm going to handle something like this, he's somebody that I have to bring in at some level, even if not the whole details. Because, you know, it is important that you get to know him. So this is Charles speaking. And this was before he comes to the questioning of 20% of what he could take from the sheikh. And over there, when he was asked about, you know, how much he will take to lead them, you know, to invest that amount of money, he said, and it's quoted here, okay, no problem, okay, let me think about that because I think we can manage something. Okay, this is tough. Sheikh, what's the right address? What should I call you? Okay, Sheikh, 20%, he said. It doesn't matter to you at all that he's hesitant in the processes?
It is, for me, when I was watching the video, in the first instance, when he began, he was very hesitant. Yes. But then as he proceeded, perhaps because he did not also know who he was engaging, and as human nature and also psychologically, you are tempted to reserve your opinions until the cards are placed on the table and you know exactly whom you are dealing with. So caution is very important, and he demonstrated that from the beginning. But as he went on, he began to ravel or unravel the characteristics which we all saw, manifesting greed, manifesting influence peddling, the abuse of power, and all those things that may constitute criminality, which the OSP would tell us about after his investigation. It is true that in the beginning he was hesitant. That is human nature. Every psychologist will tell you that until trust is established, it is difficult to begin to tell you things, particularly when those things border on criminality. But then as he went on, one of the things he said, which is revealing, is the fact that the vice president is a good man. He again mentions that the vice president was the deputy governor. He's a good man. Samson, let me quickly say here that it is a fact that the vice president is a good man. I have benefited from his goodness. I'm not a party person, but through a family source where we're bereaved and he supported. He's a good man. I can attest to that fact. The way he behaved in the social interactions when we had a funeral, and this was through a staff. So I adduce from that he is a good man, from his encounters with us as a family. Secondly, he says that the vice president has a large family. I think he went beyond what he is supposed to be doing. And then he also mentions that the vice president used to be the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. And so if they go through the banking route, he would be convinced. That is also another revealing statement he makes. But as to whether, and then he says it will be tough. He says that as well. So being tough means perhaps what we hear from Dr. Gideon Buako, that they tried as well. That's one of the issues we haven't alluded our minds to, that they tried to contact him to verify the issues of the appearance fee. And he indicated that all you needed to do was to send a letter to the vice president to do so. So again, for me, something, when I make the call that this issue is beyond one person and it should be interrogated very holistically from the office of the president or the Jubilee House. And this is one too many instances where our big people's integrity has come into question.
Okay. Just in a second's response, taking the money that was spread on the table, we don't know how much it is, but obviously some hefty amount of dollars. Taking that money, and which was clearly stated it is for shopping, and he takes it and is happy that he's going to do a lot of shopping. From your anti-corruption point of view, is there anything wrong with that?
Most certainly, morally, ethically, and from a public officer's point of view, Samson, you know that we have a gift law in this country. And so the question we should be asking the former Minister of State, or who was then a deputy minister, is the fact that the huge sums of money he collected, did he pay a gift tax on it? Did he declare the gift he received until we all saw him on camera? Did he declare?
There may be jurisdictional issues on that issue. He didn't receive the money here in Ghana. And if again, it is okay to receive the money and pay gift tax on it, then what is wrong with it then?
No, I'm saying that is where I'm saying that is one of the issues where he would have been transparent for us to know he received the gift. But then it is pure from the conversation, you realize that there is intent to facilitate a process. And so there is already greasing of palms to facilitate a process going forward. And for me, that clearly constitutes criminal behavior.
Okay.
And something, we know that whatever happens wherever, we have development, international cooperations per the UNCAC with other states. And so if we have that with the state in which he was, most definitely, whatever happened there can also apply in Ghana.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to Suleimana now. But Dr. Osai-Kwapong, do you find it legally, morally, ethically wrong when the sheikh says, oh, this is our tradition, you don't reject from us, take this and do shopping, and he accepts it? Is there something wrong with that?
Yes, because you are a public official, you are meeting someone who intends to do business with the state, right? And it's offering you shopping, quote unquote, shopping money, right? On all of those grounds, you should even be, hesitant to accept it on all of the fronts that you have mentioned. As Mary said, there are rules about, receiving gifts, the thresholds, the taxes you have to pay on it. There are the ethical issues involved. Like I said, you are a minister, someone is trying to do business with the state, is trying to, even if they are couching it as, shopping money, there's everything wrong with that transaction.
I see. He introduces, and offers to the sheikh to invest in bonds. He was looking for business, was he not? For the state.
Yes, and again, you can't, you can't be seen to be profiting from public office, right? Part of our fight against corruption is that aspect of there cannot be private gain for being in
using public office.
Yes, using public office.
Okay, Sule, now, from the interaction where the vice president is brought in and we are all talking about this, I think it is elevated to this extent because of this seriousness, because of the mention of the vice president. People have said that the vice president, as far as most Ghanaians are concerned, his integrity is intact as far as issues of corruption, graft and sleaze are concerned. Does this encounter pass to you as just influence peddling, trying to use somebody's name without their knowledge, listening to the reaction from the vice president's office and his own reaction, or it makes you want to pause and think about that again?
Well, Samson, let me say that I also hold the view that on the basis of what I've heard from people, I would want to trust the vice president's integrity when it comes to matters of corruption. In fact, I have had several occasions of interacting with persons within the MPP who have said that one of the biggest challenges for the vice president in terms of this presidential or flag bearership race would be the opinion people have of him, that he is quite stingy. He doesn't give. Contractors, approach him, and on the basis of certain terms, the vice president would not agree.
Yeah, the nickname they have given him around that is nice to see you, good to see you.
Yes.
They say that's all he's known for, good to see you, because he won't do anything else apart from saying good to see you. And some people are not happy about that he won't do the usual thing, anything for the voice.
Exactly. And so it is legitimate for people to often say, we wonder where he's going to get his money for the flag bearership campaign. And then it is not also surprising to hear Edubuahin mention the point that, what he is concerned about is money for his presidential campaign or flag bearership campaign. So as I said earlier, in terms of influence peddling and people wanting to use bigger person's name to elevate their own standing before those that they are engaging, it's for me not surprising. And to that extent, it's not surprising that Edubuahin would flag in or bring in the name of the vice president. Now,
it doesn't matter that this happened in 2018 and Edubuahin was talking about 2020 campaign.
Well, 2018, 2020 is essentially 2 years away. And obviously, before 2018, I'm sure political analysts would have already picked signals that certainly the vice president would want to run for the flag bearership race. And it was almost obvious that, well, it appears that the system is configured to support the vice president. So I'm not surprised about that.
Okay.
Now, a couple of things. One, in the number 12 incident, if you recall, the vice president's, the Jubilee House came up. People have asked, and I do share that view, but why is it that the investigators have never taken the step to go further? If indeed there is a suggestion that, the vice president can be corrupted or the president can be corrupted, I would want to believe that the integrity of the president or vice president is even much more important to the governance of this country, maybe than an appointee or a minister. Because at the end of the day, if indeed the vice president or the president has that kind of conduct or character, then it wouldn't be surprising that he would be okay with having persons like that in place. So the question is, if you are an investigator and you are investigating the cleaner, and then it gets to the point where they are telling you, the deputy MD can be influenced. And then you say, I'm not interested in getting to that point. Or you get to that point and they tell you, the CEO himself can be influenced. Why would you, as a journalist, not be interested in catching the big fishes, as they would say? But having said that, I think that we are discussing two things. One is the conduct of Mr. Charles Edubuahin when he was presented with an opportunity and told what could be offered and so on and so forth. And we need to recognize that Mr. Edubuahin's conduct is as a result of a solicitation of that conduct on the part of those who conducted the investigations. I think if we don't do that, and we essentially just focus on, he said this, or he did that. When they said this, he did that. Yes, it is important because he's a public figure, and it is good that through this, we get to know his true colors, as they may say. But it's also important to subject the whole episode to the fact that this was said or acts were taken on the basis of those acts having been solicited. In other words, the people who engaged Mr. Dubois solicited or procured the commission of the acts that were committed. Whether or not those actions, were criminal, morally offensive, and all of that, people have already said it, and I certainly share that perspective. But ultimately, I believe it is the investigative bodies who will get us to the conclusion whether, certain crimes were committed, for which reason certain additional steps would want to be taken. Now, my position
the issue of solicitation. What does it take away from the conduct of the minister?
Yes, so I made 2 points. That one is the conduct of the minister when those acts were solicited, when the opportunities were offered. And you have made that point that, initially he was hesitant. First of all, he did not ask, as far as what we've seen is concerned, he did not ask, how much are you going to give me for the work that you want me to do? 2, he did not ask, how much shopping money are you going to give me for this engagement, or how much honorarium are you going to pay me for being here? In all instances, it's about he being asked, so how much commission would you take for this? How would you do this? Can we also have that? When you come to the Chief's Palace, we give cola. So here is shopping money for you and all of that. Whether or not he should have accepted it or conducted himself in the manner in which he conducted himself, as we have heard, is what we are saying. No, as a public officer, he ought not to have, exhibited that conduct, even as those conducts were solicited. And I was getting to the point that my views when it comes to these things being done and then being put out as products of a journalistic enterprise. And I say so because, Samson, there are all manner of, developments that have happened elsewhere that people have commented on it. And it is not for nothing that every profession has certain guidelines or codes, because the integrity of the profession is cardinal, for people to believe in it, for people to accept whatever comes out of it. So those of you in the legal profession, last week or last 2 weeks, we heard about all these developments about who can be called to the bar, who cannot be called to the bar, and all of that. Whether or not it's right is another thing. But every profession has certain cardinal principles to guide the sanctity and the integrity of the profession. I would not have any issues if the government of the day would want to fight corruption, and the method they want to use is that they are deploying national security agents to try and engage ministers and other appointees and set up these kinds of things that we saw in the Galamsey economy to test how appointees and public officers will conduct themselves when such opportunities are offered, or when they use state resources to travel to engage with investors. But as was said in 1996 by Lord Stein in the UK, and I would want to just paraphrase, where he says, in any society governed by rule of law, it is surely undesirable for the press to have unfettered power to utilize undercover techniques to solicit the commission of criminal or moral offenses. Now, they go on to say that, look, under that circumstance, what must we consider whether the journalist or the press conducted themselves in a way that was appropriate? He says, 1, the nature and extent of the reporter's participation in the encounter. To what extent is the reporter participating in the encounter to test the person? 2, he says, the greater the inducement and the more forceful or persistent the overtures, the more likely that the conduct of the other party, the target, or that conduct of being forceful, being persistent on the part of the reporter, the more likely the conduct might have brought about the commission of a crime by a suspect who would normally avoid such kind of a crime ordinarily. So, per what we watched in number 12, and the forcefulness, the persistence, the request, would you take this, would you do that, and so on and so forth, then makes it difficult for us to conclude that ordinarily, if the conversation had gone on, would Mr. Dubois eventually say, okay, now that we have concluded, how much will you give me? Okay, now that I've spent so much time here, is there something for shopping? Okay, now that I've done this, I know the vice president and he's concerned about money for his campaign. How much would you give me so that I can talk to him? And all of that. We cannot, you know.
Is it important? Mutawakilu says, you must know where to draw the line. Once someone begins a conversation with you, and is that, you know, upfront about corrupting you, you should be able to tell them, this is where it stops. You don't even bring up this. Doesn't that matter?
It does matter, absolutely. And that is why I started by making the point that I am not in any way endorsing the conduct as exhibited by Mr. Charles Edubuahe because those conducts were solicited or procured by ANAS or Tiger IPI. I am not. Certainly, it is condemnable. And for me, it brings out perhaps how his conduct is, and if he gets that opportunity, how he would behave.
Okay.
But I'm making the point that the persistence, the forcefulness, the demand on the part of those who acted in order to test the man's moral integrity and character was so persistent to the extent that it raises the question, would Mr. Charles Edubuahe ordinarily act the way he acted, demand what he demanded if he had not been...
But Charles Edubuahe is operating as a public officer, like Mary said. And he also has his code of conduct that he must respect. Is that not important? So that even when it came to judges who became the subject of trial in the courts, through this same method that was used to, you know, catch them doing wrong, the courts convicted them. Some of the judges went as far as the Supreme Court. Some went to the ECOWAS court. They still lost. Doesn't that tell you that, you know, it's about he too breaking his own code?
No, Samson, I think perhaps you are repeating the position, and I need to also repeat my position that indeed, on the basis of what Edubuahe did, of course, it is now subject to investigations.
Right.
And you know, I have an issue with not the referral to the OSP as an entity, but the special prosecutor, Mr. Kisi Ejabe, being involved in these investigations. And if we have the time and we can get into that, we would go into that. But I was just making the point that, yes, it is important we subject Mr. Edubuahe's conduct to scrutiny and to condemn it on the basis of what we saw, but we shouldn't do so without also bringing in the fact that those actions...
Thank you. Let me come around the table here quickly, and then I'll take a break. Because we also have the censure process to also look at. But my sources, information I have, tell me that, you know, when the question is being asked about why is it that this was done 2018 and why today, the impression I'm getting is that, well, there were certain events that happened after, you know, the Kwesi Nyantakyi film or the number 12 film happened. We know that some of the investigators that were involved became subject of attack, and actually one was killed. I don't know how some people try to separate the killing of Ahmed Swale from his work. It doesn't wash. Now, because of that, there are people who needed to go lie low, and so on and so forth. In fact, there was one of the investigators who was compromised by an MP. We all know him. And so on and so forth. So eventually, they needed to, go and lie low, try and regroup. And then at this time, it does appear they feel that one person who they have captured doing wrong is the topic of discussion in the country. And why not? As far as journalists are concerned, they'll talk about what they call the hook. So they bring it out at this time. Once again to you, and then I end with Steve. There is a referral to the special prosecutor. You said you will want to wait to see how that goes. What are your expectations with that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Truly, as I indicated, I expect him to do a good job. Yes, for now, his performance, I would say, is average. I've not seen any case that he has carried out, and I'm very excited about it. But I believe that the media need to be very, very watchful and follow the processes. And why am I saying that? Because, for example, if you told me 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago that if you went to Adubuahi to do a contract and he would demand 20%, everybody would say, no, we have not heard him do that before. He's a gentleman. He has dignity. Until one stroke will reveal a lot. It takes one to reveal many things that has been done in the past. And that is why I'm building on. The way and manner he spoke, I would expect the Office of the Special Prosecutor. One, how did he get to know so much about the family, who to put here and what to do to be able to get the work done? And the Vice President.
The Office of the Vice President says he does not actually know the family from the narrations and things he spoke about and the numbers of the people involved. He's clueless.
That is what the Vice President is saying. And that is why I'm saying that the OSP should follow up the trail. It is very, very, very important that he follows. How did he come by the word appearance fee? Is it a common word that he has to use over the period? I'm okay. And adding the word token. For me, $200,000 is not token. If it is token, have there been instances where much more has been received? That is much more than the $200,000. That is very, very important. In terms of his conduct, he has actually proven beyond, to me, that that is his business. I know him, he has a...
Now you are speculating.
Eh?
Now you are speculating.
I'm saying that from what he has indicated...
You are moving beyond what you know, what we all know, and you are speculating.
No, I'm not. I'm going to something else. I'm saying that I know that he has a company called Black Star, something.
Yeah, we all know about that.
Yes, and it has been involved in issue of financial transaction at the finance ministry. That is known. To the point of real estate. And we don't all know if you study money laundering and how to move from...
No, that's not an allegation,
no,
Steve.
It's not
he himself said he is into real estate.
Real estate.
And into real estate, then he speaks about that. Now he's talking about the Black Star.
How can that be
wait, that company that he's talking about, that has come up over a long period of time. He makes the offer for the supposed investor, to take up bonds. Which means that from the way the conversation was going, he was going to sell bonds to the country and then benefit 20% from that.
Exactly.
Oh. Is that what it looks like?
Look, I'm driving at something. So he first said bonds and real estate. Bonds, who will be the financial advisor?
Well, as far as you know, his company is one of them.
So he benefits.
It's only one of them.
Then. Real estate, there are two issues. First, that amount he requested, is it free carried? That means the $50 million, he is not going to contribute anything as a public officer. If
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing. They should bring the 50 million, but you are not contributing, but there is a return of 25 to 30. How do you know much about that?
And that too,
the second one,
the affordable housing project, would there be a sole sourcing directly to his company, or it will be advertised and then in the end his company will win the contract?
That is what the special prosecutor should follow through. If these people are into a different field, you are pushing them to this. We all know that one way of money laundering, legitimizing it, is through estates, antiquities, and all that. The office of the special prosecutor should be interested in following all these trails. But I'm surprised. An investment of $500 million, you need 20%. And that is $100 million. I'm so surprised that he could be requesting for that amount. But nobody should believe that once we haven't heard about A, then we draw a conclusion that he's very clean. It takes one to expose. But one thing we have to know is that in influencing a person, it could come from the person requesting it or the person who needs that help making a proposal. It is left unto you, the public officer, based on your ethics and code of conduct, to know that that is not appropriate. Gift. Do we give gift after work has been done or before the work is done? What do we consider that type of gift? I need help from you.
I see.
I want you to do some job for me. But before I say, oh, I have a gift for you. For me, it is to influence you to do what I want from you. And therefore, we cannot consider it as a gift. If you truly execute what I needed, and after the work has been done, I come to thank you very much for the work done. However, this is what I have for you.
Right.
That could be considered.
Okay. So the special prosecutor says it is getting into action. There are people who have raised issues about the referral by the president of the petition to the special prosecutor. And I have been inviting people to read the Special Prosecutors Act itself. If you read the Special Prosecutors Act, for example, in the very beginning, Section 3, if you read Section 3, Section 3.1h, 3.1h says that to achieve the object, the office shall receive and act on referrals of investigations of alleged corruption and corruption-related offenses. Then it lists a number of places where those can come from, including public bodies. And then when you look at the Special Prosecutors Operations Regulation 2018, from the very beginning of that one to, it provides for referrals to be done. Initiation of action, it could include referrals. So Regulation 1, Sub-Regulation 1G says that the office may act on a referral from a competent authority, among others. And then finally, there are people who are saying if it was some common person, the person would have been arrested by the special prosecutor. If you read the Special Prosecutor's Operation Manual, it does appear the special prosecutor doesn't operate by running to arrest. What they do is to first invite. If you don't honor the invitation, then they will make a publication of the invitation to you. If you don't honor that one too, then they will come arrest you. Yes, Steve.
Thank you very much, Samson. I think this issue, we shouldn't heap scorn on it and treat it because today is somebody. It's an emerging thing that we should be careful as a country in our pronouncements and our judgment. Samson, let's be very honest. We are concentrating on the fact that somebody was tricked into making this statement.
Tricked?
Oh, of course. I mean, let's be honest.
You said you. Will you be tricked to do that?
I haven't gotten there. But maybe this thing has happened. It's been an eye-opener. And of course, I think when I was at Maslow, A, B, C, D, if I added up, God saved me. I didn't do that. But something depends. Looking at all these issues, let's be very honest. Is it that there was an issue that was being investigated, or somebody premeditated, pre-planned, had preconceived ideas to plunge somebody into this entrapment? Let's be honest with ourselves and God. I don't want to go into details of it, but the discussion,
entrapment.
Whichever.
Well, Ken Oforiatta yesterday was repeating that this was an entrapment.
You know that after 5th February, when they did that to Charles, I think 8th April, they tried on Ken Oforiatta and he failed. They did that. They touched you. I mean, a lot of things will come up. You understand what I'm saying? We don't want to go in because of where things are coming from and we are a family relationship, but let's ask ourselves. I want to read something to you.
What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? You are familiar with sting operations, right? You do this almost the same thing all over the world. These tactics are used. Okay, first, this issue has come up over and again, and the president has come into focus. Let's hear what the president said about Anas's principle again, and then let's have Stephen, candidly tell us why it does appear a certain section of the government is nervous and doesn't welcome this Anas's methods. Let's hear the president.
Yeah, thank you very much. You have specifically mentioned corruption within the taxation system. What exactly will you do to stamp this out?
The measures are going to be difficult, but there have to be a variety of them. Including what I call the Anas principle, setting up highly motivated professional groups of young people who will work, if you like, as it were, undercover to unearth examples of corruption wherever they can find it, and thereby allow the authority to deal with the issue. Because not only do you unearth the corruption, but you actually deal with it in terms of sending people to court, prosecuting them. Hopefully, the courts will cooperate and make sure that the offenders are found guilty and sanctions appropriately enforced. So, a variety of measures, but a key one is the Anas principle, as well as, of course, what you do to securize those who are in the tax collecting agencies.
This Anas principle thing. Internationally, there have been guidelines for this undercover thing that have been done in the name of Anas for journalists, of his class to use to guide them in what they have to do. So the president was right about this. So what do you think about what people are beginning to see is the posture from particularly the NPP, as if everything is wrong about the same principle that the president said he will use?
I don't think it's the posture of the NPP alone. When the two speakers were talking, I think one or two, even the woman, the first statement, alluded, nobody's rubbishing what Anas has done or has been doing. You can't say that. At least anything that has the propensity or the potential to unearth, uncover or discover, corruption tendencies. A country such as Ghana, that corruption has been a big issue. Personally, it's a big issue to me and to everyone. You cannot rubbish what Anas has been doing. But one can raise concerns about his modus of operandi and approach and tactics, and also handling a Dubois issue in this context. I think we all have to also be careful. Let's be very honest. In fact, it wasn't even a Dubois that initiated I put something down, the appearance fee issue. From all those who have read, watched, yes, it wasn't. It was something, I was reading something that momentary impulse, I wrote this down, which causes one to act without advanced planning, can result in decision made on the spur of the moment. Let's all be very honest. Sometimes one can make terrible mistake when your reflexes are actually triggered. In situation where people start talking, and if you don't take care, at that time, you can make an arbitrary decision. That doesn't mean you are exonerated or you should be pardoned. I mean, what happened? After him, it went to Ken. Why is that? Him went to Ken.
There's no evidence of it.
Yeah. Oh, but I'm telling you.
No, you guys have been saying it, but there's no evidence of it.
So that is why you're a good journalist. People should probe into that.
I have checked. There's nothing like that.
So
from the court of those you accuse, they say there's nothing like that. Yeah.
Okay, but that is what I know. So it's left with Ken to also come out clearly with, as you're saying, supporting evidence if it is. And sometimes it could also be, but because he didn't have the intention to record what happened, they can also deny. I'm not saying what analysis group saying is wrong or false, but probably they had preconceived or
when they caught the judges, the judges who declined, they named them, and we all celebrated those judges.
They named who?
The judges who declined the
but you are
during
talking
the
about
2015 investigations.
You are talking about two different issues here. Somebody is in government. I mean, you realize that clearly the target was Ken. Clearly, the target was Ken. And they planned, somebody who has planned to get you into issues will prepare. Said that his side may not be featured because he didn't have any idea to trick any other person. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I am not condemning what Anas has done because to some extent, it's even a good thing to serve as caution to all of us. So in a way, it has its good side. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, even bringing Vice President name into it, at least I should be allowed to talk.
No,
don't interrupt.
No. Please ignore that.
Can I please?
It's not interruption. I've been asking you questions. That's not interruption. Please stop. Now go on.
Not you. I'm not.
Don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to that. Go on.
Because even when I'm going, I'm cut, and it looks like I have
when you make a controversial statement, I'll probe it.
I haven't made one.
Please go on.
So what I'm trying to say is that even the full tape has to be shown. One thing I have a concern is that why
full
is it
tape?
That everything about it should be played for Ghanaians to know.
No,
because
when it gets to court, then they bring the full footage.
No, I'm coming.
You can't watch the full tape.
Boss, I can be...
They would have done this for months. How can you watch a full tape?
So then how can also somebody trust about edited one?
The edited one, do you deny that you have seen Edugwahin saying certain things? That's the most important part.
What I'm trying to say is that somebody's comment, if we had had the origin and the full tape, probably would have also given Ghanaians, look, when they are not shown even what they are shown, and almost everybody, I haven't watched, I don't want to lie. Everybody that watched, a lot of them are saying that, oh, we thought A, B, C, D. And even when we were confused, some were even sitting there after the program to know. So I think to be fair and honest to Edugwahin and even Ghanaians, I think Anas should show all. I have nothing against Anas. I mean, I don't even know him, but I think he's also doing his best to contribute to fighting corruption. But he should do it in a way that wouldn't seem like I have planned, I have built up conspiracy game theory to get people into trouble and for Ghanaians to have opinion of us. Look, Samson, talking about people even supporting politics and politicians. Political parties are supported in 3 major ways. Time factor will not allow me, but one of them is financial support. 2006, you remember Tony Blair was being investigated for cash for honest. Go and check. So sometimes even drawing lines between these things is very complex. Then you go to somebody's country after providing pieces of information the person wanted. When an imposter, somebody that put himself as, look at that bank. Is it Al Barak Islamic Bank? A millionaire bank. And then somebody presented himself as such, and that moment you believe in the person. The person, oh, our culture is said that it's like a talking thing. Something, if you don't take care, no matter what it is, you may take.
Okay.
Because he says his culture. So we need to look at all these things in the context that we are talking about. You look, many a time along the line, the extract that I've gotten from all of you indicated that Charles was very reluctant. But that doesn't also mean he was right in accepting the offense. And so it was something like he was intimidated. It was put through his throat.
We understand that the vice president. We understand that the vice president. I'm asking you a next question. We understand that the vice president, beyond what he sought to do, is consulting with his lawyers to determine further actions. Do you expect that he will take some further steps?
I am not privy to that, but he's an individual with his fundamental human rights.
Should he take further steps?
As enshrined by the Constitution. I cannot advise yes or no, but now it's very clear that the vice president is innocent until somebody has additional pieces of information. But my concentration on this is that I think we all should be careful going forward. I think analysis should redefine new paradigm shift.
Okay.
The way he does his things, so that you don't really force and put people in a situation where they might not have gotten themselves into. What is this thing about lobbying fee?
Okay.
In even the developing economies. I'm not justifying all this, but let's look at the fact that one, he was intimidated. Two, most of the offers were initiated by those who wanted to actually intrigue him or trick him into the situation.
He said intimidated who?
But
Charles Edwin was intimidated.
Course. Check. What is intimidation? It's not when I push your head under something. If I ask leading questions, trying to push you into saying A, B, C, D, who first mentioned Vice President's name? Who first offered this appearance fee? Who said that, it's our culture, take this for cola? I mean, the amount and the gift, all those things. So we need to also accept the fact that as much as Anas probably might have had good intention, which I presume in quote, the approach said that it makes his prey sometimes, in my opinion, placed in an awkward situation that will be difficult for people to condemn them. I think we need to analyze that.
As a public officer, according to our Criminal Offences Act, Section 29, as amended, Criminal Offences Act 29, Section 252, as amended, a person shall not accept or agree or offer to accept a valuable consideration, that includes money, under the pretense of having duly influenced or being able or agreeing to influence or other persons, any other persons in respect of functions as a public officer or a juror. If you do that, the law says you commit an offense and you are liable on conviction to a term of imprisonment of not less than 12 years and not more than 25 years.
Does it include gifts?
It says a person shall not accept or agree or offer or accept a valuable consideration under the pretense of having unduly influenced or being able or agreeing to influence.
So what is the definition of valuable here?
If you say you can influence somebody, then that's it. All right, so unfortunately, this is where we end this part of the discussion. The OSP is coming in, so we can leave everything to the OSP. We understand that all footages already or are being submitted to the OSP for the purposes of the investigations. We'll be right back to ask whether Ken Ofori-Atta should resign. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And my guests who have been assisting us to do the discussion are Dr. Stephen Amwa. He's MP in Shaeso and member Finance Committee in Parliament. Adam Mutawakilu is former MP and a financial economist. Adam Mutawakilu is former MP for Damongo and former ranking member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. Dr. John Osai Kwapong, research methods, just between the two of us and his friends on social media. Political scientist, democracy and development fellow, CDD Ghana. Mary Awalana Ada is Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Suleiman Ibrahima is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Just a couple of your messages, and then we go on to Ken Ofori-Atta facing the storm in Parliament over the censure. Kofi Amwa says, same entrapment, but one fell and the other stood. Where again lies your defense, uncle? Gatsma 1 says, we didn't hear Mr. Nyantechi in the number 12 expose say that the businessman needed to part way 5 million, you mean to part with 5 million and 3 million to the president and vice president respectively in order to secure contracts. Please, let's be honest, in this country, Nyantechi and Boaheng can't be wrong. It's the practice, it's the norm. Then Amofa says, if it will take Tiger IPI to reveal corrupt action like what led to the sacking of the Minister of State, Edu Boaheng, then what is the National Investigative Agencies doing? Kelvin Badin says, in conclusion, this is a show of bad character by the minister. Prince Marcus says, everyone is innocent until caught red-handed. Dijala H says, Anas has done a good job, but I think he should have rather focused more on the presidency. Harry Olufunwa says, my take is that it was wrong for the video to have such a misleading title. You cannot put A as a title and go ahead to show B. Much of the material is years old. It has allowed culprits to go unpunished for years and has placed specific issues out of context. Well, they say crime has no expiry. Foma says, President commended for what? Or isn't this the same Edubuahin? The same president was insisting was an excellent minister he had no intention of sacking just a few weeks ago. All right, so those were some of your messages. Now, Parliament has been busy. A committee in Parliament has been busy looking at the possibility of passing a vote of censure on the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. And many have expressed concerns about what is going on in that house. So let's begin that discussion too. And let me start with Mary. From your perspective and looking at what is going on, this is a good move, is it not?
Certainly, Samson. I believe it's a good move, and for our democracy to grow and continue to flourish, we need acts such as these.
Okay.
And I take my viewpoints from, if you look at the Constitution in Article 23, it talks about providing fair and reasonable opportunity for somebody who has to respond to an issue to do so. I paraphrase. And so for me, when the issue came up in Parliament, the Speaker did his part by assessing what could have been done. And in his judgment, the fair and reasonable opportunity was to facilitate the process of creating the ad hoc committee, which would then give the minister who had been cited on 7 grounds to then come and answer with his legal representation. So on the part of the Speaker, that was good. It constituted the committee. And on the first day that I had opportunity to watch some of it, apart from the heckling, the unnecessary heckling that happened, I thought it was a very good process, because then the minority had opportunity to present their grounds, and it went so very well. And I think also because we had 2 co-chairs coming from the different parties, it also helped. The only thing that perhaps we could have avoided was too much heckling on the part of the co-chairs. But we can't have it all smooth. But I think on the whole, it was a very good process. The person who was accused brought in his lawyer, who made a strong case to be given a number of days to come back. And that happened as well. So I think the committee on the whole did a good job. And looking at the questioning from yesterday's session of the minister, I believe that also went very well. But my impression of the whole process is that I think it created a platform for the Minister of Finance to explain himself, and that is good. The fact that it was aired to the whole country to have a look at it also was very good for everybody to have their perspectives from the horse's own mouth. That was really good. I get the impression that his apology, though well-intentioned and very emotive, would have won him some, scored him some points. I believe so. However, the issues, the antecedents of the presentation, where he continues to premise the apology based on Russia and based on Ukraine and COVID is my worry, because we all know that those exogenous factors also happened in other places, as near as our Côte d'Ivoire, our brethren who are around us, and yet they are not in the mess we see ourselves. So for me, on a whole, I think the minister acquitted himself. Per the questions they asked him, he responded. It's left with the plenary to then determine if the provided answers meet what they were expecting, and also to look forward to the next steps. But for me, I believe that my whole take on this is that we could have been spared this tortuous process where we are expecting a budget which is delaying, by the minister who calls from, if you remember, Samson, the Citizens Coalition Against Corruption, which my organization belongs to, a former member which you belong to, have made calls that the explanations are not tenable. And so at this point, to inform trust and confidence in the investment space, and then also to rejuvenate the citizenry's trust in the economy, to ensure that we are not picking our CDs and buying dollars to hide and others, the minister should step aside. I think it would have been, he would have spared us a whole lot of hassle. And having this process in place where they are also spending more money to sit and others. So for us, we think that as a Citizens Coalition and this process shouldn't have happened at all. We should be concentrating on the budget and how this country would get out of the situation we are in.
Yes, Suleiman, listen to the finance minister, and let's examine whether, in fact, he apologized to Ghanaians about anything.
Our economy is facing difficulties, and the people of Ghana are enduring hardships. As a person President Akufo-Addo has put in charge of this economy, I feel the pain personally, professionally, and in my soul. I see and feel the terrible impact of rising prices of goods and services on the lives and livelihoods of ordinary Ghanaians. I feel the stress of running a business, but it is the strength and perseverance of the Ghanaian people that inspire me and my colleagues in government every morning. And it's to press on. That is what gives me the strength to press on, to find solutions and relief for Ghanaians to the myriad of problems that our country and the rest of the world are facing, especially since March 2020. Co-chairs, let me use this opportunity to say to the Ghanaian people what I believe, with courage, every finance minister around the world may wish to say to their people now. I am truly sorry. It's a pretty difficult period for me and my family. It's historic, and that's dark historic to be censured as finance minister. It's a little bit sad when also we delve into these grounds, and some have had to be stepped down because it's a very serious period in the country's economic history and life, and it sends very strong signals which are quite destabilizing. But let me reiterate my gratitude to the Honorable Speaker and the co-chairs and the committee for at least democracy and rule of law, and giving me the opportunity to be here. As I said in my submission earlier today, these grounds have attacked my person, my character, and my professional integrity. And I think we have shown here that those were not very sound, but I wait to hear from the plenary. This has been a really traumatic experience for me. Even more distressingly, the professionalism of the staff at the Ministry of Finance who work tirelessly in the management of the economy, feeling very tarnished. It's also been a very difficult week for the ministry with the exit of our Minister of State. That that's not really elicit and enhance or encourage those not in the political sphere to come and help.
Yes, Sule, so the question some have been asking is, did he actually say he's sorry to Ghanaians in the context in which he said it? And he said, let me take this opportunity to say to the Ghanaian people what I believe with courage. Every finance minister around the world may wish to say to his people, now, I am truly sorry. And then people say, if you juxtapose that with everything else that he had to say, not accepting any, fault, saying this was inherited problems, this was external, and it had nothing to do with him. He has managed the economy well. What do you say?
Well, Samson, let me start by saying that I admire the finance minister for two things. The first is the sheer resilience to continue to stay onto that position despite all that has happened. And the second is his usual calm demeanor. How he takes his time to respond to the issues and when he's making presentations. In terms of whether or not he apologized, I think that yes, he did. He says what he believes that every finance minister with courage would say to their people at this time. Of course, it is not every country that is in a mess, and it is not every finance minister who is supervising a mess, as we are witnessing in our country. And therefore, perhaps it ought to have been qualified that all finance ministers who are currently managing economic crisis such as what we face ought to apologize to their people. In terms of not accepting any blame and trying to push the blame on economic factors, matters of legacy and all of that, and of course, for the fact that he stayed on, despite the pressure, despite the historic demand by parliamentarians from the NPP for him to resign, despite the civil society campaign for him to go, despite the daily hashtag Ken must go, and for him staying on, I didn't expect that he would go there and accept that I have, made mistakes and indeed I have been incompetent and all of that. So, to be honest, I think that yes, it was an apology. Perhaps it ought to have been qualified in one way or the other, but I didn't expect that he would go there and admit that. I mean, if he would admit, then he would have resigned long ago to sort of redeem the party, to save the president, all the hassle, and all of that. But having said that, I think what is happening, apart from the fact that it's historic, it's also very important. And I haven't listened to it, was of the opinion that if legally it was something that was allowed, we should have an arrangement where maybe every 2 years, that's a midterm review, having ministers appear before a committee like this, and then being interrogated and asked questions about things that have happened within their sector. But of course, that may not be something that would be allowed within the legal remits of the constitution and procedures that we operate at this stage. So what has happened certainly has helped us to know a little bit more beyond what we read, what we hear, and the debates that we've been following. But all said and done, I am still firmly of the opinion that Ken must go.
Okay. Nonetheless, you still share the view that he's demonstrated rare quality of leadership. That's resilience, right? Where there is the mob, everybody asking that he be, if you like, quote unquote, lynched. He's still hanging on.
Well, I don't know if that is a leadership quality, but it is something that to the extent that he's still there. And I thought when the MPs did that, the following day, what I would have read would have been Ken Ofori-Atta resigns. So I'm still surprised that he's still at post, and the fact that he's there to respond to the questions, well, maybe it's admirable.
All right. Now, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, it's I don't really know how to ask this question, but this is it. The NPP MPs, at least we know now, 89 of them or so. The number has moved from 80 that we knew, and then now we hear it's about 90 plus. They want him out. Now, the NDC also want him out. There is, if you like, a majority of Ghanaians. There's a groundswell of opinion against his continued stay in office. And yet the two parties cannot agree on the censure motion.
Yes. So for the MPP MPs, I don't know if it's because the censure motion was moved by NDC and therefore on purely political partisan grounds, that is their quote-unquote objection to it, right? Which is, we know we want him out, but we won't do it on your terms, right? The other day I was asking myself, would they have been okay if these 80 or almost 90 plus MPs were the ones who came up with the censure motion, moved it, and then solicited political support in terms of the numbers from the NDC MPs? Would they have been okay with that sort of approach, right? So that's one of the issues for me. But I think,
Doc,
yes.
how do does the ordinary person appreciate what is going on? As many as 98 of the MPs in the MPP say the president should relieve him if he will not resign. Mm-hmm. Then all the NDC MPs also say, well, he should go. Mm-hmm. Why can't they agree? Because all they want is for him to go. The same thing.
That, but ultimately, it is up to the appointing authority to also say, yes, I agree, he must or he must not go. Now, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago on the show, you raised the issue of what is going to happen, and there was a discussion about the meeting that took place after the 80 MPs came out, and it was the response was that the president had asked that they wait for two things to happen: the IMF negotiations as well as the budget. And I remember you kept pushing the whip to answer the question, what does it mean that, quote unquote, the president would act? Does act meaning he's going to relieve the finance minister, or does act meaning he's going to say, I've heard you, but I can't do this? The president has said over and over again, at least the few times that I've heard the president, he's made it very clear that he has no intention of relieving the finance minister of his role. And I also don't think the finance minister has any intention of resigning. So we'll just have to see how the censure motion plays out. If really it gets to the floor and the 98 MPs would, or the almost 90 MPs would join the NDC people.
The motion, the process that is going on, people are displeased about it. The people are talking about unnecessary heckling, particularly from K.T. Hammond. He doesn't seem to want to listen to anybody, and making conclusive, categorical statements. And the MPP MPs appear to constitute a legal team for the minister, literally. That the minister didn't actually need to come with a lawyer.
Right, but Samson, I think you also have to understand that this is also a very political process. And in a political process, political passions tend to go up. You're right. I mean, the Honorable K.T. Hammond, I think generally that's also his style and his temperament, right? The way he talks, things like that. But yes, at some point in the process, you see the heckling, you see the interruptions, you see the clashes here and there. But again, it's a very political process. And so I can see how a very political process would sometimes have all of those motions.
As far as you are concerned, who is in charge? He makes one ruling, and then the co-chair, Dr. Dominic Ayeni, also comes in, makes a ruling or overrules him, and I'm lost watching them.
Right, and I'm not sure why they went with the co-chair model, right? I would have preferred a single chair for the committee. But I think it's also been very helpful that Dr. Ayeni is his co-chair, who has a very different, for the most part, a very different temperament. Once in a while, you do see that they engage in a little tete-a-tete and seem to, agree on, well, how we're going to proceed from here. But I think he's been a good counterbalancing force against, the personality and the temperament of Honorable KT. And overall, they've managed to, shepherd the process since it began, and we will have to see what the ultimate outcome is. But yes, I know the heckling, the interruptions has been frustrating for me, has been frustrating. If you look at a lot of the commentary on social media, you see that others have picked up on that and have expressed frustration with regards to that too.
All right. Thank you very much. I will take our very final break here, and then when we return, we have Dr. Stephen Amoah and Muta Wakilu in the studio continuing the discussion. Thank you very much to Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, Mary Awalana Ada, Programs Manager, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Dr. John Osai Kwapon, Political Scientist, Democracy and Development Fellow. When we return, like I said, the two gentlemen in the studio will continue with us to finish up with the discussion. We'll be right back. Of time on radio. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And Dr. Stephen Amoah, MP in Shaiso and Member Finance Committee in Parliament, and Adam Muta Wakilu, former MP for Damango and former ranking member for Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament. Now, so let's begin with Dr. Steve Amoah. The Finance Minister in this process doesn't appear to admit even one single thing as far as the motion for censure is concerned. He ends by saying practically that most of the financial problems are inherited and external. So he's done a good job, and that this is actually witch hunting, and it was needless.
He said witch hunting?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, he wrote it.
Thank you very much. I think, Samson, if the finance minister said that, it is in the context we are all trying to speak on. Of course, constitutionally, I think Article 82.4 provides this mandate, if I'm correct, you're a lawyer, for this triggering the censure. And then the Article 23, if I'm also correct, gives the opportunity for fair hearing. So constitutionally, one cannot debate the exercise going on to any large extent. But then the question is, this whole brouhaha, as a matter of fact, was based on the fact that our economy is not doing well and that it is his fault. And this is the context, all of us, if there is no other motive or other things that people don't want to talk about, we are based on. But is that a fact or not? Let's all be very honest. In my opinion, that is not true. That is my opinion. And
what is not true?
The fact that he is the cause of our economic decline or whatever. I don't think that is true.
He's the one managing the economy.
So
who
that's
else
why
should be
allow
blamed?
me to explain my point. If you keep on interjecting, you don't allow me. I beg, just do me a favor. I've said it, I disagree. So why I should be given opportunity to do that? I'm just begging you. It is not true because the economic primary macro indicators are there. Economy or financial economics is not something you can, out of your own intuition or opinion, say things. No, the facts are there, numbers are there. He took over this country from the year 2017. Of course, the 2016 figures are there to use. The areas and the parameters we are talking about What were they? Talking about GDP, inflationary rate, talking about lending rate, talking about policy rate. All of them are there, something. First 2-3 years of he being, or MPP government, I don't want to limit to him, MPP being in government. What were the figures? What were the figures? Were they doing better? Because, to the best of my knowledge, GDP had grown from about 3.2, 3.4, averagely to about 7%. Policy rate was about 25.5. It had reduced to about 12.5. T-bills were about 22 point something, had been reduced the same period for about 14. Reserve had been increased from about 5.8 to about 7.4, given about 4.3 months. All these were happening. Let's be very honest. There's something happening globally or not. Factually, globally something happened. And talking about the fact that, you know, one of our speakers, Madame, said that Côte d'Ivoire and others, let's put this in the right perspective. Côte d'Ivoire, these French-speaking countries are basically not having their economic sovereignty. Everything is enshrined in France, French government. So it's a different thing when it comes to these problems. Two, they have different outputs when it comes to outlays and expenditures. Are they doing the same free school, the same country? There are differences. That is why we talk about global performances or African continental performances. Nobody can do country to country. Basically, that's what we do, industry against entity. So we look at these factors and see that, oh, nothing had happened, but our economy was declining, so it is him. As I'm talking to you now, the global inflationary rate before the COVID was about 2%. Post-COVID is about 8% and over, which is, in terms of percentage, about 300%. We depend on these groups. I'm not comparing Ghana to one country. I'm talking about the fact that we depend on them. So if their markets are doing bad, what will happen to us? In any case, some of the even parameters we are talking about, based on which we say the money should go. Papa, policy rate even now, 24.5 is lower than 25.5 we inherited. GDP growth now is higher than we took over. Then when it comes to debt to GDP, any professional person should come and prove me wrong. What led to that situation? We have uncontrollable factors and controllable factors that you can't say that something is your fault. Let me finish this technical explanation here.
In the charge number 2, unconstitutional withdrawals from the consolidated fund in blatant contravention of Article 178 of the 1992 Constitution, supposedly for the construction of the President's Cathedral. Did you hear his response to that?
But what I know, you're a lawyer. You're a great lawyer, not just a lawyer. I think the constitutional, Article 2.1 and Article 131, what does it say? These are jurisdiction issues. Let's be very honest. Is it the Supreme Court that has the mandate in terms of interpretation and enforcement of the law to interpret this or not?
Did you hear his response that people are faulting when he says that I'm depending on, I'm funding Cathedral on contingency?
No, contingency vote, not contingency fund.
It's contingency.
But there are differences,
in the
terms
question
of,
is,
if I was going to explain one point, now I should forget about it.
You did quite a bit on that.
No, I was going to explain that to GDP, why it's not his fault, and why nobody can blame us as a government.
Okay, so if we can look at the process as per his answers, that's what we are treating. So if he's saying that this is how he's treating a cathedral project, which is costing us so much, and remember he says yesterday that this is a completely, totally government of Ghana project. Is it wise? People are asking that question. Is it wise, and is it being sincere and honest to say that you are going to do a cathedral project and you are going to fund it through contingency?
Contingency votes. We should have, I think that distinction was clear. But in any case, Samson, those who are saying that in terms of priority spending, discretionary spending arm of our budget, we shouldn't have picked that option, I cannot say they are wrong or right. Because different people have different views when it comes to matters of faith and belief. Some are also of the opinion that as God's country, we need God's intervention. We need God to help us couple with our work. Not only that thing alone. So other school of thought is saying that absolutely there's nothing wrong with it. Other school of thought is also saying that there's something wrong with it, especially the timing and looking at other areas of priority. So these are all discussions. But let me ask you, were we asking the finance minister to step down or resign based on the economic performance today or not? That is the core of the issue we are all discussing. There could be other issues people will raise. Let's be very honest with you, which they may be wrong or right. And I am saying that if it's the economy alone, then that would be very unfair. That is my opinion. It will be unfair because the parameters are clearly known. US GDP is over, debt to GDP is over 100%. UK over 100%. In fact, prices of goods and services, UK is about 400% from 1.74 to about 10.1. Talking about that, as I'm talking to you now, aviation sector, railway sector, postmaster sector, magistrates court sector in UK now, they've been on demonstration or they are still on demonstration. Prices of goods every week goes up. We depend on them. So let's accept this in this context. Then we can stick to specifics and say that, oh, this thing was done right, it could have been done right. So based on that, you should go off. But what I disagree is that people are saying that the economic hardship we are having today, and look, Samson, look at this factor. One of the things economically, my brother from the NDC are even quoting, is the exchange rate. Is that what we are talking about? Our government took over exchange rate of 4.2, up to 14%. In terms of percentage increases, 233. Those who are calling his head, they took over 1%. Sorry, one CD to $1. They left 4.2. The difference is about, in terms of percentage increase, 320. The point is, most of the things people are talking about, they are not wrong. But these are long-term rituals that we need to manage as a country.
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you.
Akilo, I don't know if you felt the same as many people as they began to tweet.
I want to end with this.
I'm coming. As they began to tweet, when the issue, his answer about relying on contingency to fund the cathedral came up, that 42 million Ghana cedis you are using for a cathedral, and contingency means incidental. It means circumstances which you didn't predict, and you are not setting about. How did you feel when you got that answer? Do you feel like others who think this was very bad?
First, I considered the word contingency and related it to the cathedral. And if that fits, then many more things are supposed to have been paid. Contingency are unforeseen events. Certain events you cannot predict. And when they come up, you provide provision and take care of them. This cathedral is not an unforeseen. In fact, they started with the fact that it will be funded not through public funds. That it is the president promised, Nanado's promise to do it. And therefore, they will find a way to raise money to execute it. Later, they change their mind that it should be public. And it is not something that is hidden. So I expected it to have been captured in the budget and approved. So the fact that you now use it as contingency, and therefore contingency vote, and should come from the presidency budget for government machinery, I begin to wonder. So you can deceive Ghanaians, treat any item as contingency when in fact it doesn't fall. Then we must treat statutory funds as contingencies. Because from January until the majority raised an issue, common fund wasn't paid. National Service Secretariat, the allowances to them. These are things that affect lives.
Common fund.
Are you getting my point?
Funds are being paid
I'm telling you. I'm saying that these are things that affect human lives. National service personnel at home, the allowances are not being paid. Then we must treat it as contingency because it's going to save lives. And many more arrears have been outstanding. So I have realized that this man has just found a comfortable way to explain something that does not exist. For me, in fact, he has breached the law and must be taken on for that.
Which of the laws?
But his point of saying that he's sorry and blaming external factors and inherited, just point out one thing to me, that the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is not in for Ghanaians. He's in to satisfy his selfish interests. That is my conclusion. Why? You ask me. Even if he was performing very well, assuming that he was doing excellently well, and Ghanaians says, we don't need you. Your own parliamentarians say they don't need you. Opposition says they don't. Some, about 98, which is more than 50%. You know, 137 and 98, as you stated.
Something.
Yes.
Is that factual?
Yeah, 98.
And you have the list?
It is.
98.
But they have spokespersons who have been leading them. Andy Apia-Kubi has confirmed that. He continues to talk to us. Yeah.
That's about 72% of your members of parliament said they don't need you. 100% of minority MPs said they don't need you.
They say they wouldn't do business that he will preside or coming from the finance
But they called for
ministry.
his resignation. They called for his resignation. That was the call. And if that was not heeded to, this is the action they would take. Majority of civil society organizations says you should resign. The best thing is that, I'm working for you. You are saying that I should resign. Okay, let me resign. But all these groups saying that resign, and you still insist that you will resign, apologize, and still remain, then there is something beyond working for the people, but working for myself. I want to benefit something.
This is a minister we understand doesn't take salary, doesn't draw salary and all that.
That is what I'm saying. What he's benefiting is more than the salary. That is why he's not willing to resign. Let me tell you.
No.
Now,
this one is very unfair.
If you're a minister of finance, excuse me. If you're a minister of finance,
something like that.
Hello. Let me. I'm setting an example. You're a minister of finance. You are responsible for selecting financial advisors. Then you select your company as financial advisor. And your company benefited 157 million Ghana cedis.
Company he resigned from 2012.
Beneficial
company that was working for your government.
Let me tell you something.
The same company was working for your government.
We have run out of time.
The same company was working for this government.
That's what I'm saying.
So
let me now conclude.
The finance expert says that it is wrong to compare the USA debt to GDP to Ghana debt to GDP. That is comparing oranges to apples. It is not attainable because of their infrastructure, like roads, hospitals, and the rest of them. This has been Newsfile, and my outfit, as always, is by Habil's Couture. You can find them at Jiringa North Gate, East Legon, and the number to call is 0200 84 1988. Thank you all so very much. Have a good afternoon. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini, and this is Dr. Stephen Amwa and Adam Mutawakilu.